Altimeter ready for launch.
Okay, we are going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Launch. 100 feet. High altitude 148.
Oh no. That was pretty brutal. Hey everybody, if you've seen my most recent launch days video, then you know what this is all about. This is my Max Q Rockets Falcon 9 rocket. It is looking a little worse for wear, but all is not lost. In fact, if you remember on the video, the launch days video, I even hinted at the fact that it is repairable. It hit hard. No, I'm not going to deny it. It crashed. It probably would be thrown away by more than 50% of the people who had it. But that's not the way I operate. I love to rebuild. I love to keep things going as long as I possibly can. And this is actually a good opportunity for me to learn about the 3D plastic printed rockets and how, not only how to build them, but how to rebuild them. And if some of my tips and tricks work, then maybe you can learn from them and use them on your models if, heaven forbid, you ever have to. So I'm going to break it down step by step, and we're just going to do different segments on different portions of it. But we're going to take our time. We're going to do it diligently and effectively, though. I don't want to just slap it together and it be weak and then launch it and just disintegrate in the air. So we want it to be strong and sturdy. So like I said, we'll break it down. But just a few key things to point out. The nose cone has a major crack. I can kind of separate it, kind of like an accordion. That's going to have to get fixed. There's a slice coming up the side here. Believe it or not, there's a piece missing, and I was able to find this out in the desert. So I found the missing piece. So that can be fixed back into position right there. So that's one thing. Looking at the upper stage, really no damage to this, to be honest with you. The only thing is somehow on impact, the nozzle broke off, and I looked for probably 15-20 minutes in that general area, and I couldn't find it. But it's the same size and color as all the rocks that are out there too, so it's out there. For all I know, I may have stepped on it and crushed it to smithereens. But the thing about it is, when you're flying it, it's down in the body. You never see it. So I'm just going to write that off as a loss. No biggie. Yeah, you'll never even know it. It's missing. Okay, so let's look at the body tubes first. If you remember, I've already crashed this once. In fact, it landed on its side, very similar to the way it crashed in this most recent incident. And it busted the body tube, and you can see this line right here. That's where the joining of the two body halves actually met during the initial build. It would have been nice if it broke there, but it didn't, because I really beefed up that area with couplers and fittings in there. So that may be the strongest part of the rocket, to be honest with you. But it did break just about 3/4 of an inch up above it. Now the problem is my couplers may hinder inserting a new coupler, so I'm going to have to work around that. Maybe cut that old coupler out, or just build up a coupler on the inside and then fatten it out. We'll just have to play that by ear. We'll play that as we need to. Now, the landing legs, believe it or not, these four, this is exactly how I found it. They are still attached to the rocket body. Not the easiest joint to insert these into, so if I can, I'm going to leave them in. I'll just fold these up and out of the way as we glue onto the bottom. So, speaking of the bottom, let me pull out, let's see, here it is. So this is the section, this is the motor mount that it's going to get re-glued down in here. Now there's a lot of meat around here, a lot of thick plastic that we have to work with, cement. So we can glue that in and have plenty of purchase area to adhere that in solidly. So that's not going to be an issue. I really don't think that's going to be a problem. Okay, and okay, now it's time for confession. This is where things went south in a hurry. The time that I did crash this before and snap the body in half, it also broke the retainer cap, which is the 9 clustered motor fin assembly. And it broke. I was able to get the threads out. It didn't fully break off, so I was able to unthread it, cement the threads back onto the base here, and it hardened. In fact, the last time I flew the rocket was with this configuration, and it worked. For whatever reason, though, this time it didn't. And maybe when I was tightening it down, when I was putting the motor in, I may have cracked the glue joint. I don't know. Maybe just the heat from the motor. But needless to say, when the rocket hit apogee and was coming down and it ejected, the motor ejected, it didn't throw as much propellant forward as it pushed itself out the back. So the motor, in fact, here's the motor right here. This is the very same one. The motor blew backwards and took the cap off with it. It snapped the threads. The threads are still in there. I'll have to take those out. So that went flying out. You can see that in the video in slow motion, these two items falling away from the rocket. So because the thrust went out the rear, it didn't have enough force out the front to expel the parachute. Hence, the parachute never deployed and the rocket crashed into the ground. So that is my little NTSB minute for you. That's the cause of the crash. What's really sad, though, is I had a new cap, and I elected not to use it for whatever reason. I wanted just to see if I could fix the old one. I did, and it flew, so I was confident that it would continue to fly. But I had a new one. Why not use it? You know, and I kick myself for that. But things work out. Everything works for a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason, and by this happening, I'm going to learn how to rebuild these, and hopefully you can learn how to rebuild them too. So I think there's a positive side and a silver lining on this. The landing legs, all 4 of them are good. Only one set actually stayed on and intact. But these 3 popped off, but they're not broken. They just popped out of their little rivet holes there. And the missing 3 braces, this one actually stayed on the leg. So that one's still there. And these 2, nothing was broken. The tabs didn't break off the tips, so these will snap right back into place as well. So the landing legs will be taken care of once this is glued back onto the base. Up north at the top of the rocket, believe it or not, 1 grid fin actually stayed attached to the rocket. The other 3 flew off. I found 2 right away. I had to go back out later and find the missing one. It was at the base of one of those dry bushes that was surrounding the crash site. So I had to kind of dig in and pull this out. But we have all the grid fins. What I'm not sure about is on the rebuild, I may elect to glue all these down and glue the landing gear in position and fix them permanently. I don't know yet. We'll see. Time will tell. So yeah, the body tube, once these glue back together, I'll have to, like I said, create a new coupler fitting. I will print up some new decals. That's not an issue, so we'll have new decals. And the raceways that run alongside the rocket, they did snap in half, but they did not break off into little pieces, so I'm not missing anything. There is a crack in the body tube right here. I'll have to, oh, there, I just fixed it. I was gonna say, I'm gonna gently have to pull it out into position, and then I can put some cement on from the backside to help, mold that and plastic weld it back together. I do see a little bit of a crack there, a little bit of a slice, but that's easy to access from the inside. So the body tube is good to go. Nose cone's good, landing gear's good. The junction to the top, where the grid fins go, this part is going to have to get glued back into position. But it's not going to be an issue either. Everything that broke was a clean break, fortunately. It didn't shatter into a million pieces. They were all clean, straight line breaks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break it down one segment at a time. I'm going to take it over to another workbench, actually, where I can zoom in a little closer and tighter, and we'll do the repair over on the other bench. But I'm optimistic that this thing not only will be fixed, but will successfully fly again. So let's get right into it. Okay, the first item I want to attack here on the rebuild is the nose cone. It looks pretty bad. It's got several almost full diameter, or I'm sorry, full circumference cracks around it. The top one's probably the closest to going all the way around, right here. And then it's got another one about 1/8 of an inch below it, and then another one 1/2 inch below that. But here's what I'm looking at, though, is when you compress it, and let me show you those cracks. Okay, so you see them right there. When you compress it, they disappear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a toothpick and the same cement that I glued the rocket together with, the side grip 16, and I'm just going to put a dab on the popsicle stick, sorry, and then I'm just going to, from the inside, you don't want to do the outside because you'll make a mess, it'll smear and it'll look ugly. But if you do it from the inside, and I'm going to kind of drag it along the side, and what that'll do is, as you drag it, it'll put just a little bit on the inside of that crack. So when you do compress it, you'll have glue between the two surfaces. Once I get the cement in there, all around the cracks, I'm going to take another popsicle stick and anchor it to the base like this. And I'm just going to take a little hand clamp, and I'm going to clamp. Let me open it up a little bit. I'm going to clamp the nose cone, and the compression of the clamp will hopefully squeeze all that together, and we'll just let it sit and not touch it for quite a while so it can set up and dry and cure. So let's go ahead and get that going here. Let's get some cement here on the paper. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to start at the black and white section where they meet up, and it's going to drag. I'm going to kind of open it and drag the cement along the inside. I can actually kind of see the darkness of the popsicle stick through the white plastic, so I know where I'm at. Okay, it's already starting to harden on me, so I'm going to have to do another little dollop of glue on the paper. But we're almost all the way around. Okay. Now I just squeeze it together, make sure it mates up nicely and flush. It does, it looks good. Okay, let me set this out of the way so we don't make a mess of things. Okay. Let's take our popsicle stick and our clamp and just start clamping to the tip of the nose cone. Now you obviously don't want to over clamp it because then you'll just crack it and make things even worse. But tighten it down. There. Okay, now just kind of rotate it And I mean, the cracks are almost, I mean, if you look close, yeah, you're going to see them. But you'd have to look close. And a casual observer is not going to notice a thing there. So, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the way that came out. We're just going to let that cure now. We'll come back once this is done, and we'll have to fix that crack there. And obviously replace, or get that part glued back in there too. But yeah, just to set this aside, and we'll move on to another project. Okay, the next little project I want to work on is removing the threads that broke off the retainer cap. Let's see. Not quite sure the orientation. It might have been like that. I can't quite tell where they are, but you can see that there's threads on the inside there. So what I'm going to do is very carefully, because I can't risk losing the threads that are part of the housing. I can damage and destroy the screw part, but it's the outer housing that I don't want to mess up the threads. So if I can I'm just kind of chip away at it. See if I can kind of actually shave into it. I want to stay clear as best I can of that outer housing. And once I get the cut all the way through, then I can just kind of pinch it and pull the whole thing out without having to actually unscrew the whole device. Oh, we're close there. That actually almost got it. Sorry, I'm bumping the camera there. Okay. We are awfully close right here. Ah, I think we broke through. There we go. Okay. Just kind of weasel that out, and there we have it. Okay, I think we're good. Is that excess plastic? Or, yeah. Yeah, we'll just kind of, that's exposed. We'll just kind of trim that off. Okay, now I do have my new, again, this is the broken one. This is my new one that I should have been using from the get-go. And I'm just stubborn, and I wanted to make the best use of the old one. Kind of like how I'm rebuilding this one. I felt like I needed to rebuild that too. But let's just make sure that this new one will even thread in. That'll show that we didn't damage the threads. Oh yeah, look at that. Screwed right in first try. Awesome. Okay, so this is now fixed as well. That can be discarded or just kept as a souvenir to put on the shelf with a little placard saying, "Remember when," right? So, okay, we'll move on to the next part. Okay, the next thing I want to work on is the upper body tube of the two halves. And just to real quick let you know, the reason you'll see a piece of blue tape on here is because off camera, I took this piece here that it attaches to that I'm going to eventually have to glue back together, and I kept working all the possible ways it could go back together, and I discovered that this is the correct way. This was the original direction. So I just wanted to mark each side with some blue tape, so when it comes time to do it, I'll know which way to go. Before we glue, obviously, the two body halves back together, we have to address the cracks that are in the body. I'm sure you can see that little gap right there. I'm going to separate it and close it. Separate it and close it. So we need to fill in that gap with some cement and then clamp it shut, just like we did with the nose cone. And also up on the, I guess it'd be the lower portion of this half, there's a split right there also. So I'm going to apply some cement on the inside there and down here in the middle. I did clean up. You may be able to see the difference in color. It's not too well there. It's pretty dramatic. I took some just some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, and I scrubbed that as clean as I could, so we wouldn't have any soot or ash from the ejection interfere with the glue. So got that cleaned up. So now we're just ready to go. I'm going to use the same technique with the clamp. Got a couple more popsicle sticks for clamping, and I've got a bigger clamp. So this will be what we use to kind of compress it down to to squeeze those cracks shut. All right, so now you probably noticed this glue does dry pretty quickly, so I'm gonna have to work a little faster than I normally do, so I may not talk. You know what I wanna do too before we start? This decal is gonna get replaced anyways, so I'm just going to cut the majority of it off. Just because it is in the way, and but I want to leave some so I'll remember what direction it goes. So there, took care of that. Okay, so we have a crack here and here. Let's address this one first. That one's going to be a little harder to get to, so let's attack that one first. It takes care of that side. Now let's do this side real quick. It is amazing how quickly the cement starts to harden up. Once it hits air, that's all she wrote. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to kind of finesse it here just to kind of make sure everything is in the right orientation. Okay, that's about as good as we're going to get that, and that one's good. There. I just feel like that's not quite bonded and wet enough yet. Okay. All right, so let's slide the glue out of the way. Run a couple popsicle sticks this way and that way. Oops. And gently squeeze on the handle. So I'm just very carefully down here. It's not a whole lot of space here to work with, but gently squeezing, compressing, and let me rotate it to make sure the cracks are in fact sealed up. Okay, now see, this is actually, I like this. A little glue actually just came out. But that tells me that the glue went into the joint, so that's actually not a negative for me. That's a good thing to see. Okay, so that is now all set, and we're going to set it aside so it can cure, and we'll move on to something else now. Okay, the next step is unfortunately going to have to be done off camera. I'm going to be out in the garage doing some machining to this rocket, but I do want to show you before I do it what my intention is and my plan. So obviously I need to glue the motor mount back onto the bottom of the rocket. Now what I have here is now an exposed motor mount area, which previously was not exposed. So that gives me an option. if I ever thought about maybe upgrading to a bigger motor, this would be the time to do it. This rocket has struggled on the 18 millimeter motors with the C's. Now I could run a Q-Jet D motor, but you know, those things chuff a lot, and they're not the most reliable motors. But I want to have something that I can really beef up the power with. So I would like to put a D motor in here, just like the new NASA SLS rocket is set up for. So is it possible to convert this 18 millimeter motor mount to a 24 millimeter motor mount? Well, that's what I'm about to find out. I'm going to go out in the garage and grind down these tabs here until I can squeeze in some BT55 body tube. Once I get this down all the way to the firewall, or that bulkhead down there, I guess it'd be a firewall, then I just need to trim the body tube to length, keep it straight, and then glue it on the four sides, either with shims or just, you know, maybe there might be a 16th inch gap or so. We'll see what we get. But like I said, I think now's the time to do it. If we're going to upgrade to a 24 millimeter, this is the gift of miracles, because normally, you know, this would have been a devastating crash, but we're actually not only are we fixing it, but I think we're improving it. So I'm going to take this out to the garage and grind down those four tabs and see if we can't get a BT50. I said 55 earlier. I'm sorry, I meant BT50. I'm not sure what I said earlier, but it is a BT50 that we're going to use to install the 24 millimeter motor. So let me run out to the garage and I'll come right back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I just got back in from the garage, and I'm not sure how well the lighting is, but you can see here that I've ground down these side walls here. There's 4 of them that would stick up, and I took them down to maybe there's only less than a 1/16 of an inch on each side. And then I took a piece of BT50 cardboard body tube and cut it to length, and it now fits between those grooves until it hits the back plate, or bulkhead, or firewall, whatever you want to call it. Let me fold these up and out of the way. Okay, now I did notice that before I cut the tube, it seemed like it wanted to veer off that way. In fact, you can kind of see it on camera how it's still kind of leaning that way. So I put a piece of tape on this side, knowing that this is the side that needs shimming. So I just took a piece of toothpick, and if we put a piece of toothpick and shim it on this side, let me see if I can use the pliers. There. Oops. Well, I'll glue it in, it'll stay. But by that, putting that shim in will straighten the body tube, so then you've got parallel tube to the body tube. And then, of course, I just grabbed a D12 motor, as I know this is a 0, but anyway, you get the idea. And then, well, once this part glues on, then your motor just slips right into that tube. And then you screw your cap on. So that's the way it's going to work. Pretty cool. So we're ready to glue. I'm going to use some thick CA down at the firewall. I'm just going to kind of run a bead along the bottom side there, and then I'll put a bead up down each side of the these little sidewalls here. Okay, and we're just going to slip this in until until it bottoms out. And I'm going to kind of hold it to the side and let me run some glue right down in that gap there. And we'll run our little shim through that glue. Oop. Okay, looks good. Give it a little spray of accelerator. Okay, it's locked in and it is straight, looking at it from overhead. We've got it. Okay, so actually now, now that this is dry, I'm going to kind of slice down this just a little bit so it doesn't interfere too much with our, sorry, I was off camera there. Let me just kind of angle this a little bit so it won't interfere with gluing on our engine mount. Okay. Yeah, no, that's going to work out just fine. Okay. I'm going to kind of oversee things, kind of check things out before we make the next step, and we'll come back and glue this on to the bottom of the tube there. Okay, so let me show you what I've done off camera. I've prepared this joint here between the body tube and the engine mount. And it looks a little crude, I realize that. But I took some popsicle sticks and cut them into 1-inch pieces. And I glued 1/2 inch in, and I want to glue the other 1/2 inch into this half. The bond between the two will be made with cement, plastic to plastic. But just to give a little bit more rigidity to it and strength, I'm going to super glue the wood popsicle stick into the mount as well. Just to, like I said, just to give a little bit more strength. So, and then once I get that together, I'm going to clamp it with my large C-clamp. So let me get the cement out. Okay, I'm actually going to put the cement on the black portion. Tell you what I'm going to do. Let me get my paper out here and we'll do it this way. Okay. Probably a little more than I needed to. Okay, I'm just going to very lightly kind of brush this on. And I'll do it more toward the inside for obvious reasons. Okay, so there we've got cement all the way around. Okay, we'll take some thick CA and lay it. I'm just going to put a drop on each little flat spot here. Okay, I'm going to spray just a little bit of kicker on the wood. I'm going to line up the blue to blue. I've got the tape already in position. Okay. Okay, the CA is kind of already starting to hold it in position, which is good. That's going to give us some stability while the cement does its job. Okay, so let me go ahead and clamp this in. Set the glue out of the way. Take a couple popsicle sticks on each end. And there we go. Just going to squeeze that. I'm not going to try to break it, just obviously not too hard, but just enough to compress those two parts together. Okay. Okay, that looks real good. Okay, so we're just going to let that sit and cure, and we'll get on to the next segment. Okay, I just want to show you one thing that I did off camera because I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it, but I had to glue that little tab that snapped out completely right where the mounting hole is, where this screws into the tube to hold it in. In fact, you can see I clamped it the same way I did previously when I fixed the other cracks, but let me release it and I'll show you what exactly I did. I'm sure you can kind of see that little rectangular piece there. That's a piece of just white styrene that I kind of patched over the crack. You can kind of see this crack line. I did my best to disguise it, but it just stayed there. But to keep it from ever opening and splitting, I did cover it with that, I think it's 0.010 inch plastic styrene, and that should keep it together. Now this little piece right here, that just glued in around on the edges. I'm not sure how durable it is, how long it'll stay there, but I used cement, so it should hopefully have bonded the plastic together. So I'm optimistic that that's going to hold. Let's actually do a test fit to see. This is the piece that it screws into. Okay, well, it does fit. Looks like the holes do line up. My only concern is that if that were to snap off, then theoretically this could come off in flight, and if you've got a payload in there, then you don't want to lose your altimeter. But I don't know why it would come off, because there's no. I mean, if anything, it would only come off on landing if it hit on its nose. But I think it's good. Okay, I'm optimistic that'll hold at least for the flight up and down. Like I said, if anything, it might break on landing if it comes in and hits the nose. But if it comes down soft enough, it shouldn't be an issue. So got that taken care of. Let's move on to something else. Okay, the next thing I want to work on is attaching the bay that goes just below the upper stage, the part that this would slides into. I need to reattach this to the upper body tube. And if you remember, I think I showed earlier, I tried different rotations, not knowing exactly which way it went. I discovered that this is the right orientation here, so I put tape on either side just so I could know how to glue it. And what I discovered is when I plugged it in that way, there's a little bit of a gap right there in the plastic. So I identified that with a little piece of tape and an arrow. And when I reattach this, I'm going to do it two ways. One, I'm going to glue cement on the top, so plastic to plastic will be cement. But I'm also going to insert a little coupler that I made. I actually cut this out of an old BT60 tube, and I just had this scrap laying around. Now, unfortunately, there is a bit of a gap. It's not, full circumference, but that's okay because it's going to seal where I cemented anyway. But there is an area. I showed you where that gap is. I just kind of colored with black Sharpie. So as long as that black Sharpie fills that gap area, you won't see the brown through the yeah, see? It kind of disguises that little gap there. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to glue the cardboard coupler in with CA glue, and then I'm just going to run a bead of cement around the perimeter. So let's go ahead and glue this into the body. Let me get some thick CA here. Okay. Now I just got to be careful to get the black stripe directly over that little blue stripe that I put on the tape. So let's drop that in to right there. Okay, we're covering up that gap. I'm just going to kind of squeeze that little coupler. It's not, I guess you could say, not perfectly straight, but for our purposes, it will suffice. It's kind of twisting on me, but that'll be okay. Okay, I think that's going to work as a coupler. It's crude, but you know, you'll never see it again, really. Well, yeah. Let me see if I can't spray a little kicker down in there to help grab a little bit better. There. Okay, there, it grabbed. Okay, so now, let me just do a little test fit here. Yeah, see, that's gonna... Yeah, there we go, that's perfect. Look at it, you could even hear it snap into place as it found its position. So that's gonna work out great. Okay, so... Okay, let me take some cement. Let me get my handy-dandy, well-used paper and stick. And I'm gonna put the cement on this portion. Well, actually, you know what I could probably do? Tell you what, I'm rethinking this as I go. Here's what I think the issue is gonna come up. This just occurred to me. As I slide this on, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to put the CA on this portion of it here. That way it'll ooze forward and not out, and I can still put the cement on. Actually, you know what I think I'll do is I'm gonna put just a thin bead of CA. I'm gonna forego the cement. I'm gonna run a thin bead of CA on the coupler, so as this closes, it'll sandwich the glue in between the two parts. So yeah, again, I'm thinking on this on the fly here, but let's run a thin bead of glue. I'm gonna remove this fin right here, this grid fin. I don't know why I left it on, it just looked cool, so I left it on. Okay, let's that's gonna be where the gap is, so Plus, this allows me to use the kicker, which will help it dry quite a bit quicker. Okay, now let's run our glue bead in here. Help spread it out a little bit. Okay. Now just align our blue marks. And hopefully things will snap. Back into position. Yeah, this is working out well. Okay, it's on. And like I said, that little gap that was there, I mean, you could fill it in with putty and then, you know, paint over it, but then you're dealing with paint. I think that's going to be sufficient right there. Okay. You know, I'm going to just run some glue down the gap on this end. I don't know if it's coming up on camera or not, but it'll just kind of help fill that gap and increase the strength of that joint. There we go. Nice. Just gonna let that seep down a little bit. Okay, let me give a shot of kicker in there to help speed it up. Okay. I can remove the tape. Okay, one more step down. Really, the only other thing we need to do is reattach the... I just taped over the top so it'd keep the shock cord from flopping around on us. But I need to glue the two halves together. And again, I'll use a coupler method similar to what I did just now. But you know, you can also see I got all the legs put back on too. They all snapped right into place, no issues there. So yeah, and check it out. 24 millimeter, baby. Woo! This is gonna be awesome to see fly on a D motor. It really is. I'm excited to see that. So yeah, we are making progress on the rebuild. I'm just gonna let that coupler kind of set up a little bit, and then let me cut some tubing to make a coupler for this part, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, one of the biggest parts of this rebuild is actually attaching the two body tubes, the upper and the lower halves. Now, off camera, I kind of Rube Goldberg'd a really cheap and cruddy looking coupler, but the reason being, not sure if you can see up in there, I had created a coupler before when I originally re-glued this. You can see the seam line here on the last rebuild. So what that did was it changed the inner diameter of the tube, so I couldn't just run a single cardboard tube in there and make it work because the thickness changed. So I kind of had to, I don't know, just glue a bunch of little different sizes in to make it fit. But ultimately, I got it, and it's solid as a rock. It's glued in strong. It's beefy. It's solid. You can see when this last crash happened, it didn't break at the old seam because it had gotten so much strength from that glue. So this is going to be, you know, again, probably the strongest part of the rocket once this is glued on. But now what it enables me to do is use that coupler to slide the two halves together, line the raceways up. I don't know if you can see it, there's a little joint right there that's going to fit together just perfectly, and the seam should disappear. If we can get that together right there, it'll be not completely seamless, but fairly seamless. And I've elected to go with CA glue all the way around. I'm not going to use any cement because that would just get messy, because I can't use the cement on the cardboard anyway. I just want to use CA glue. So I cleaned the inside of this tube best I can so the CA will adhere to it. But really all we need to do is just run glue. Well, I'm going to run the glue on the inside of the tube, slide the two together, and then maybe hit it with a little bit of CA kicker, and it should hold. So let me yeah, this is going to work out just fine. So let me go ahead and run a bead of glue. I'm going to get my extra thick CA. If it'll come out. There it goes. And you know, the original instructions for these rockets say you can use cement or CA, so it's proven that the CA will bond to this plastic very good anyway, so I have no qualms about using CA glue on this. And then let me run a little bead of CA here, so it'll hopefully squeeze up in between the two plastic portions. A little overrun right there. Okay, moment of truth. Okay, line up the raceways. A little bit of seepage out the seam there, that's okay. Tell you what I'm going to do. The nice thing, and it just worked out that way, is right where the seam is most prevalent is going to be right under where the decals go. So that should actually mask, when I put the new decals on, it will actually mask some of that seam up. So that's going to work effectively. So I'm just squeezing it together best I can. And voila. We've got probably a stronger body tube than we had to begin with. So yeah, awesome. Let me just do a alignment check looking down the length of the tube. It's straight. Awesome. Guys, this rocket is almost done. Really, all we need to do now is just, I think one raceway. Yeah, this raceway needs to be glued back down. That's nothing. Put up some new decals, get them laid down, and she'll be ready to go in no time at all. All right, let's let that set for a bit, and then I'm going to glue that raceway back into position, and I'm going to go print up some new decals off camera, and we'll come back and put them on. Okay, the rocket is now complete, and I want to do a quick overview of all the segments that we had to do individually to get it back to its flying status. So starting from the top, show you the nose cone area here, where the screw goes in to hold the payload bay on. Repaired that with a piece of styrene plastic over the crack that we cemented on, so that should hold it back in place. Plenty of room for your payload, altimeters, little trinkets, whatever you want to fly on board. So that pops back into place. Now, the one thing I did not do was I did not replace the nozzle because I've yet to find it. Next time I'm out at the desert, I'll look for it again. I've already spent a good 15-20 minutes looking for it, but it may be lost forever. But that's cosmetic only, and you never even see it when it's on the rocket for flight. So not too worried about that. Okay, so we do have the shock cord re-secured again. All 4 grid fins are back in position and still operate as they should. They rotate up and they collapse back down for flight. You know, it'd be kind of interesting to start them out like this and just see if the flight itself, the air pressure closes them. I don't know if I'm willing to try that or not, because if one sticks, it may cause a deviation of flight. But anyway, I just kind of thought of that randomly right now. But we did glue this portion on using a coupler. Not sure if you can see up in there a little bit there. There's our coupler, made of cardboard BT. It's actually BT 60 that I cut to size. Okay, then traveling down, I do have new decals on the rocket right at the junction there. And I did glue down the raceway that had popped up as well. So that is now secured with a coupler I put in there to help hold it together. It's solid. It's probably stronger now than it ever was. And down to the landing legs. Now, I will admit, for whatever reason, there is a little bit of a, I'm not sure what may have tweaked, but the landing gear no longer springs down like it normally does when you mount the fin set. So I did wrap some electrical tape just around the bottom of it, just to help keep the legs in and tight. Don't want to risk them opening them up in flight, but yeah, just and I may elect to get some black cable ties. I thought about doing that too, to cinch them down, which may be a little bit more attractive. But from a distance, you'll never notice, you know, that's even taped down. Got the fin can back on now. This is probably the most major part of the rebuild, and it's the upgrade to the motor mount. Let me take the motor out and let me show you what we got. Okay, almost there. There we go. Another half turn maybe. There we go. So remove the fin can, and look what we got inside the motor mount. A D12.5. That's right. Able to squeeze a D motor in there. So I'm super excited about flying this on a 24mm motor. This should definitely get it up high enough where we get more time for the parachute to deploy, just maybe more accurate altimeter data, just all around. I think we're going to get better performance out of that D motor. So let's see if I can get this to screw back on. There we go. Okay, fin can secure. So the rocket is all done. See if I can just sort of shove all the shock cord back in for now. So next launch day's video, you will see this fly again. It's really incredible to imagine after seeing what it went through on Saturday when I flew it. And keep in mind, I'm filming this 24 hours after the crash, so it has been rebuilt in less than a day after it crashed. I did also replace a few of the smaller decals up top. I don't think they came off in the crash, though. I just happened to notice that they were missing. So I may have just inadvertently, I don't know, ripped them off or swiped them off in the process of removing the canopy at some point. Don't know, but got those back on. And also, after I applied the decals, I did go over them with a coat of future floor polish as well to help secure them as well. So, all right, so the rocket is done and ready to fly on a D motor. So thanks for watching this little rebuild video. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if rebuilding is for everybody. I enjoy the process of rebuilding. I don't like to see anything completely dead. I just like to see things revived again. And I wanted to prove to myself and everyone that the plastic that they use is, assuming it's broken in a clean manner, which this crash definitely did, it can go back together pretty easily. So, of course, if I wanted to just replace the rocket with new parts, that's probably the easier thing. And for less than $50, that may be the most prudent thing to do. But again, rebuilding is something I enjoy doing, so I decided to share it with you. But it may not be your thing, so at the price point that these rockets are, it's not that difficult just to get a new one anyway. So, but with that, guys, let me conclude this video. Thanking you for watching, and thanks for supporting all that I do for the hobby and on my channel. So, until next video, God bless, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.